forget, my friends, to like, comment, and subscribe. This is a show by the people, for the people. I am everyday people, as Sly Stone once said. Jump in, participate. We like the interaction. We love the interaction. In fact, we live for it. So get in there. Let us know what you think. In today's program, Tennessee says two can play the quarterback snatching game, and they reach out to UCLA and they take their old quarterback. You want our quarterback? Well, why don't we just make it a trade? We're going to talk about that later in the program. And the St. Louis Blues have harnessed the power of Joe Boo. You remember Joe Boo from Major League? Very bad to take Joe Boo's run. Well, the St. Louis Blues have called in Joe Boo, and he's getting the job done. We'll talk about that as well, but let's begin. And of course, there will be Super 70 Sports tweets scattered throughout. But let's begin with Nico Harrison and the Dallas Mavericks and the continuing shockwaves that are reverberating throughout the NBA in the wake of the Luka Doncic trade that, frankly, many of us still can't wrap our minds around. Nico Harrison is doing what you would expect him to do. He is defiantly asserting that the trade was just fine and the Dallas Mavericks are better and the Dallas Mavericks will be better positioned to go forward and win championships. Well, what else is he going to say? Somebody walked into your office environment and said, "Hey, Bob, you're not doing so hot." What would your response be? Your response would be, I'm doing just very well, thank you, sir. This isn't true at all. I do a good job. Who the fuck's going to tell you that they suck at their job? So of course, Nico Harrison is going to stick to his guns, and that's exactly what he did. Let's take a look.
Did the anger and outrage from the fan base, has that exceeded what you were kind of planning for?
Yeah, good question. I did know that Luka was important to the fan base. I didn't quite know it to what level.
He didn't realize how popular Luka Doncic was in Dallas. I knew that they kind of liked him. But how was I supposed to know that they loved him? Turns out they really love the guy who goes out and averages 38 and 8. Go figure. The fans, they were really into guy. They were into him more than I thought. I thought everybody would want a broken down 31-year-old Anthony Davis. I thought that would be the solution, but it turns out that they actually want the top 5 property in the league. They want the guy who's going to go on and set all kinds of scoring records. God only knows what Luka Doncic's statistics are going to look like when it's all said and done, but we know that he's not going to be piling up those numbers in Dallas. Nico. How much longer do you think he's going to be able to hang on to that job? I don't know what the ultimate power structure is in Dallas now. I know that Mark Cuban didn't know about the trade until it was too late to do anything about it. How much job security do you have after fucking up that royally? Wouldn't you love to be in a position where you could fuck your own job up as bad as Nico Harrison has fucked his up and everything would be just fine? You continue to get paychecks. You continue to be able to go into work and just go on about your business. People would ask you questions about why you suck so bad, and you'd just be like, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm not sure why I suck so bad. But then the paychecks would keep coming every other Friday. It must be nice to be able to do that. This man can't build the team. He can't build the team, but I can tell you somebody that could sure as hell build a goddamn house. And it was this man. Maybe the Dallas Mavericks should give Bob Vila a call. Did you ever watch This Old House? I know some of you remember. It would start out something like this. Hi, I'm Bob Vila. I'm about to make a bunch of extremely difficult shit look easy just to see how many of you are stupid enough to fuck up your house. He'd bring in Norm. What we're doing today is we're building on an entirely new room to this house, and in order to do that, we're going to have 4 nails and a hammer and this measuring tape. So head on down to the hardware store, pick up those items, come back. We're going to show you how you can fuck up your entire house. I'm going to welcome to the program now a man who's never fucked up anything in his entire goddamn life, as far as I can tell. One of the legends of the state of Indiana, a living legend in the state of Indiana, in fact, and of course, a luminary here at OutKick. You can watch his fine program Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. It is Don't At Me with Dan Dakich. And of course, I would like to welcome to the program now the great Dan Dakich. Dan, Nico Harrison's dumbass. At least that's my take on it. Now, when I had you on shortly after the trade, you were open-minded at that point. I think you observed, and probably accurately, there was a rush to judgment here, and you were kind of like, let's pump the brakes. This trade might not be that bad. What do you think now, with a little bit of time to look back on how both franchises seem to be affected so far?
Well, I'll be honest, Ricky. I think it's yet to be determined. It's funny. I'm really not a guy that watches the Lakers much, and I just don't, for whatever the reason. Now I am, because I kind of want them to lose. I kind of want them to shit the bed here a little bit. If they lose in the first round, which they're down 1-0, they'll win tonight. But if they lose, you didn't make this trade and put 2 people together for a year or two to lose in the first round. You could almost make the case, other than Nico Harrison's idiotic discussion yesterday that you so adroitly pointed out, if you just go by on the court, I'm telling you, if the Lakers lose in this first or even the second round, nobody won this trade other than a bunch of jersey sales, and Nico Harrison is eventually going to lose his job over it. But to this point, the trade obviously has worked out great. When last seen, street clothes, a.k.a. Anthony Davis, was walking off the court after shooting an air ball limping. And his season was over, which is fitting. Clearly, Nico Harrison's idiotic comments about not understanding how important Doncic was to the Dallas community, it kind of illustrates a bigger point, Ricky. When you get into coaching and I assume general managing, you kind of live in your own bubble. You're in your building, you're paying attention to your own, you don't really see what's outside. And I'm sure inside that building, they were very critical of Doncic. He doesn't do this, doesn't do that, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. We got blah, 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 blah. And they got him out of there without looking at the broader picture. And, Ricky, you know this goes back to commercials in the 80s, Converse commercials, McDonald's commercials, Spike Lee, Michael Jordan commercials. The NBA is built on the superstar, the guy. It's not built on the team. College basketball is built on the school, the brand, the coach. Here in professional basketball, it's built on the superstar. And Nico Harrison really opened himself up for a lot of criticism, rightfully so, by not understanding. How the hell are you in the NBA and you don't understand what a superstar in the NBA means to that particular town? But in terms of the trade, hey, man, I'm anxious to see if the Lakers get really anything out of this other than some good pub, and Nico Harrison gets nothing out of it other than some bad pub and a broken-down Anthony Davis.
Dan, to what you're saying, I mean, it's a personality, star-driven league, and it's not just about the results on the court. It's about what you said, jersey sales, fan enthusiasm, the whole entertainment spectrum that goes with it. Look, I look at this and I think, look, if you're going to give up the best player in a trade or the most valuable player in a trade, you got to clean up on the package that you get. They didn't even get Austin Reeves in this deal. It seems like to me the Lakers would have probably still pulled the trigger on this with Austin Reeves in the trade, and you don't even come away with that guy. So to me, it's a fireable offense, Dan. I really think it's a fireable offense, this deal. It's hard for me to see how Nico survives this.
Well, he does survive if he's being the Roger Goodell, the human shield for the owner. Is he taking all the shots? Here's the thing I've learned about sports. I learned this at a young age at Indiana. I'd read stuff and go, wait a second, that's not true. Hold on, that didn't happen. And so I always want to know the backstory. I always say I got to hear the other side. And I'm curious because, really, Nico has been left out there on his own, and a lot of people are saying it was his. But I had a Dallas guy tell me there's no chance that he made this deal. And the owner is making this deal. The owner didn't want to pay the Supermax, and Nico's job, like Adele's, he's highly paid for it, is to take all the bullets. I don't know. But I do know this, like Barkley and they said last night, I think it's Barkley and maybe Kenny, Nico, stop talking. Just stop talking. Okay, the trade is done, and forget it. And I did think he handled the press conference in a very interesting way, basically saying, look, I've done a really good job here, and we're going to be really good next year. In terms of Reeves and the trade, I think people in Dallas could have held out hope even for this. Even if they would have gotten a couple first-round picks back for, along with, Anthony Davis, if they had gotten like the future Shakir, they didn't get anything really. I mean, if they would have gotten Austin Reeves, if they'd have gotten Davis, if they'd have gotten a couple picks, maybe. But honest to God, if you don't understand the NBA is star-driven and you had not only a nationally known guy, but you had an international star in Doncic, and then to admit that, it's like Coach Knight used to say to me, Ricky, you either don't listen to me or you're too dumb. Which one is it, Dakich? And I'd say, I always listen, Coach, so I'm just apparently really stupid. You either haven't worked hard enough and don't understand your business, or you're just too dumb to understand your business if you're Nico Harrison in this case, one or the other, because if you don't get that the star brings in a wealth of assets and you don't get that the star is all-encompassing of a basketball NBA franchise, then you're either too stupid or you haven't paid attention.
Well, if Nico is the sacrificial lamb for what ownership wanted to do, and he's just out there taking the daggers, I hope he's at least going to get a Christmas bonus this year because he's getting raked over the coals. If he's out there, taking the bullets for something that he didn't even believe himself, then God bless the guy. Dan, Cooper Flagg has officially declared for the NBA draft. That, of course, is a surprise to no one. But with the dust cleared on his time at Duke, his brief time at Duke, how good can he be, Dan? When you look at him, do you see him as a kid that is going to come into the league and be an all-star, which I think probably at a minimum would be the expectation for him? Or do you think that he could really be the face of American basketball that some people say we're lacking and desperately need?
Ricky, I think he could be. I think he's good enough. He's the best freshman that I've ever seen. I thought Magic Johnson, when I saw him when I was a kid, 16 years old, I thought he was the best. I thought, name a guy. I mean, a lot of people say he's the best 18-year-old they've ever seen, including LeBron, people that I respect, and I get it. Here's the thing. This is what I've always said about NBA guys, and I say this actually maybe about all pro athletes. You got to do what the greats do. You got to figure out, okay, how did Michael, how did Kobe, how did Bird, how did Magic, how did they get great? Well, one of the ways they got great, well, actually two ways. They worked harder than anybody. Larry Bird wanted people to think he didn't. He's just a beer-drinking hillbilly. That ain't true. Larry Bird would get up at 5 in the morning. He always got the best high school kids around, would work out like a crazy man. I mean, like a crazy person till about 9. He would go for 4, 5, 6 hours, and then maybe he'd go drink beer, play golf, and then go to bed early and then do it all over again. Reggie Miller, I sent a first-round draft choice, kid named Greg Graham, to work out with Reggie Miller, and he couldn't handle it. Reggie Miller was all day. Michael Jordan all of a sudden made weight work great. Magic Johnson figured out how to shoot. If Cooper Flagg follows the lead, Kobe Bryant already had a 2-hour workout in by the time practice started. If Cooper Flagg does what the great players do, and it ain't easy, man, it ain't easy at all, then I think potentially he can be the face of not only the NBA, American basketball, maybe basketball. He can have that kind of impact. But, man, the list ain't that long. The list is long of guys that have busted their ass that didn't have talent to make it. That's a long list. But when you are uber talented, uber recognized, uber compensated, which is what Cooper Flagg is right now, which is what Michael Jordan was before he played a game by Nike in the NBA, do you still have the work ethic? Do you do what the greats have done? I always said this about Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was a great quarterback, but he didn't do what Peyton Manning did. He didn't work out a wide receiver that they drafted at 5 a.m. before they were announced at their press conference. He didn't drive 3 hours to go work out Anthony Gonzalez when Anthony was drafted but couldn't make it because he was finishing up school. He would drive after workouts to Columbus, work him out for an hour, and drive 3 hours back. That's the greats' work ethic is stunningly ridiculous, actually. And I don't know, we'll see whether he does that. It's funny. There's a lot of things that go into a career. Jack Nicklaus said about Tiger Woods, yeah, he's the greatest talent I've ever seen with the toughest mentality. But let's see what happens when he gets a wife and kids, how his focus changes. Well, when the 9-iron went through the back of the car and Elon or whatever the hell her name is wasn't too happy with Tiger's activities, that changed whether or not he was going to break Jack's all-time record. So the jury is out, talented enough, tough enough, all that kind of stuff, but it's a long road to get to that point, Ricky.
Dan, I know you got to get out of here, but let me ask you this. Magic went to L.A., Bird went to Boston, you had Jordan came into the league, went to Chicago. Patrick Ewing, we all know the conspiracy theories about what happened with him going to New York. I think the three teams with the best chance of getting the number 1 overall pick are Utah, Washington, and Charlotte. How much of the picture does it matter where Cooper Flagg goes in order to maximize his marketability?
I think it really matters. Now, look, Peyton Manning, Indianapolis, became a marketable guy. I get it. But it's more about is the operation dysfunctional? I'll give you a conspiracy theory. What if he ends up in Dallas? I don't even know if Dallas is in the lottery. Maybe they aren't. I don't know, right? But, hey, look, the league makes a deal. Hey, man, we need another star in L.A. So, Nico et al., move Doncic. We'll get you Cooper Flagg, and you can start this thing over. I don't know. I assume they're not in the lottery, but would that be good?
Let's so go great?
Let's go full conspiracy. Let's go.
Juicy. Bill Simmons would be talking about that on his deathbed in 40 years if this happens.
Yeah.
Dan, great shit as always, my brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you,
my
friend.
Thanks the
Thanks
great Dan Dakich.
See you guys.
You are a sweet bastard, Dan Dakich. You can see him every Monday through Friday right here on OutKick, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Don't at me with Dan Dakich. Let me bring in a man that you can see right here on OutKick at 11 o'clock Eastern time. Well, honestly, you can see him at about 11:20 Eastern time. About the time I'm bringing him in right now is when he makes his dramatic appearance. I speak, of course, of the international streaming star who joins me from Nashville, Tennessee. He is, of course, Ronnie T-Shirts. Ronnie?
Ricky?
Does Cooper Flagg put a little bit of a hop in your step at all in terms of being someone who might cause you to watch a little more NBA? We know what Caitlin Clark did for both of us in terms of making the WNBA at least on our radar, right? And granted, part of that's because we host this show and we talk about what's in the news, but is Cooper Flagg a needle mover for people who have maybe lost interest in the league?
Absolutely. There's sometimes there's this, what's the word, je ne sais quoi? There's just something about certain players, and sometimes you can't really put your finger on what it is. It's just, you just know it. And I really enjoy watching him play. He plays with a certain swagger. Like, he doesn't have to say, hey, I'm the best player on the court. You can just look at the court and just see how he carries himself, that he knows he's the best player on the court. I look at that I look at him. He just turned 18 in December, Ricky, and he's broad shoulders. He's not like skinny, lanky. So think about what his body's going to look like in 3 or 4 years. Like, he's going to be a complete stud.
Yeah.
And he's got the movements. It's
easy to forget how young he is when you look at that frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he has the movements of a guard, right?
Yes.
He can handle the ball like a guard. He can move his body like a guard. So as he starts to get bigger, he's not going to lose all that muscle memory. Like, the kid's going to be a stud. He seems like a nice guy, which is always helpful. Like, he seems likable, because I like to like the people that I'm watching. And I'm excited about seeing what he does in the pros. I just hope he doesn't go to Utah, because late games, man.
Yeah.
Late games are going to be tough.
Yeah. Yeah, Utah is, and again, even Washington or Charlotte, look, I understand the player makes the franchise in some cases.
I could see him doing something at Washington.
Perhaps. I will say this, though. To me, the elephant in the room a little bit here is, and I don't like to inject race into it, Ron. You know that's just not an angle that I tend to pursue with these stories. But I do think that it needs to be acknowledged somewhere that there hasn't been a legitimately great white American NBA player in a long, 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 long time.
Say like, one more. One more long
time. If you look at the 2000s, right? If you just say who has been the best white American basketball player of this century, this millennium, it's probably Kevin Love. I've given this thought. It is probably Kevin Love, and nothing against Kevin Love, who was a terrific player for a long time. But I don't know that he's a Hall of Famer. Is Kevin Love going to be a Hall of Famer? No. I'll leave that to other people to decide. So. But we're looking at a league that, would it be bad? Does the league need it? I don't know. Would it be bad for the league to have that? It probably, from a marketability standpoint, we're looking at a situation where the NBA, let's be honest, they have probably been wishing for a long time for the next Larry Bird, and it's been a real long time coming. And I'm not saying that Cooper Flagg's game is exactly like Larry Bird's. It's not, but he could be the closest thing to a Larry Bird from the marketability standpoint. And I think that that's something that, if you don't address the elephant in the room, we're just pretending it's not there. There's definitely a wish here that you've got the white guy who could come in and make an impact. And I know that the NBA is hoping that he can do that.
That's such listen, I understand this is a valid conversation, but it's such a weird conversation to me because I don't even consider it. When you asked me the question, am I looking forward to Cooper Flagg being in the NBA? I literally didn't cross my mind that, oh yeah, I am, because he's white. Like, that is completely irrelevant to me, because I was super excited, whatever it was, 4 years ago when his fellow Dookie, Zion Williamson, came into the league. I wish he didn't get hurt as much as he did, and I wish he kept his weight under control, because that kid is a blast to watch. And that's why, I'm looking for players that I enjoy watching. I'm going to push back a tiny bit on you about when Larry Bird came into the league, we didn't have all the European players. So I don't really think it's necessarily as strong as we're looking for a white player, because there's tons of white players now. I think it's American. It's American.
It's always, it's just weird to me because you look at it. Jokic has won 3 MVPs, right? You look at you look at Luka and what a great player he is. It's not, but I do think again that American players, be they white or black, I think they're more identifiable to American fans. Michael Jordan, obviously, is the most popular basketball player of my lifetime. But, had he been from another country, I think that would have been at least some type of an obstacle to his popularity, although it certainly doesn't seem to have been an obstacle to Luka's popularity in Dallas. Ronnie, let's switch gears and move to college football. The Nico story, the other Nico in the news. Jared and I had a moment of confusion this morning when we were talking about our Nico stories because Nico Harrison has been in the news and Nico Io Maliava. I don't know if that's exactly how you pronounce it, Ron, but by God, I give it the old college try every time. With him going to UCLA, leaving Tennessee, obviously Tennessee was left in a bit of a pickle, and they have decided that they are going to address that. As the great Trey Wallace broke on the program yesterday here, Joey Aguilar, who had been at UCLA for about, 12 or 15 minutes, a transfer from Appalachian State, he is now going to leave UCLA and move on to Tennessee in what is functionally being called basically a trade that has been made between UCLA and Tennessee. What are your thoughts on this?
Omar, I am all for this, how this played out, because now I'm going to be paying attention to Tennessee football. I generally don't pay attention to it. I'm going to be rooting for Aguilar.
Me too.
I think
Me too.
You ever see those
I want
maps?
Aguilar to throw 35 touchdown passes.
You ever see those maps of they say who's rooting for who, like in a certain game or whatever, and it's like the whole country's one color, and then there's this tiny little bit. Well, it's going to be like light blue and gold little dot right down there in LA, and then the whole other country's going to be orange, rooting for this kid to be better than Nico. And I will put my hand up. I will be leading that charge.
And Nico, from what I have heard, is not a bad kid. I heard who was it talking about him? I think it was Herb Street, your boy, talking about it. Say, look at that. That's the best I've looked in a long time. So it mostly covered me though, so that's good. Yeah. I don't know, man. I look at it and I think. We just live in strange times.
Well,
Ron.
there's another twist to this story, Ricky.
My mind around it.
There's another twist to this story. I don't know if you're aware of this. So, Nico's brother had been, I think I mentioned this on the show last week. Nico's brother, Madden, had been committed forever to UCLA. And then on commitment day, he said, nope. And he went to Arkansas. Well, guess who's going back to UCLA?
Honest to
Nico's
God,
brother.
Ron, it's like the route that these players are taking all over the country. Do you remember the comic strip, The Family Circus?
Yep, and the dots he just showed.
And they would have the dots that would show where Billy had been, everywhere that day. That's how I feel trying to track these college players around the country who are just, it's mercenary, dude. And it's like people have said, these kids went from holding no cards to holding every fucking card. And it's like, right. I don't want to say the inmates are running the asylum because the asylum had been, run by
the pendulum,
the colleges for too long. And the players do deserve to be able to cash in, but maybe a rule or two.
The pendulum should never
maybe make some sense of it.
Then the pendulum should never just be stuck on one side. The pendulum should be, just like this. And forever it was over here.
That fucker swung all the way
now it's
to
over
the other side.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, if turnabout's fair play, I guess we should let the players have control for about the next 50 years just to even the score a little bit for all the money that they haven't made in the past. But we got to get some rules and regulations in place. Ronnie, let's talk a little NHL, something that we don't do a ton on this program. You sent me a very captivating news item, knowing the fan of Major League that I am.
I knew you'd like
the great Bob Uecker is Harry Doyle, and Tom Berenger's Jake Taylor, and Wesley Snipes is Willie Mays Hayes, and whoever that fucking guy is who played Eddie Harris. Shout out to you, sir, and your jalapeno pepper ball that you were throwing. But one of the great movies, of course, Pedro Serrano, one of the fine characters in Major League, and he had Joe Boo, well, I guess to him, it was more than a good luck object. It was a deeply spiritual thing since he practiced voodoo or whatever Serrano's religion was in the movie. The St. Louis Blues have called upon the power of Joe Boo, and yes, he has his own locker. Take a look at that. That photo is of Joe Boo in his space in the St. Louis Blues locker room. And Ron, since they introduced Joe Boo into their lives, they've gone 19-4-3, and they also had a 12-game winning streak at one point.
Coincidence?
So respect the power of Joe Boo. The St. Louis Blues are the 1989 Cleveland Indians of the NHL right now, which I think makes them incredibly dangerous.
So in his mouth, instead of it being a cigar, they took a piece of hockey tape and rolled it up and made a little, I guess, a little cigar out of that. So yeah, so, I pretty.
What's not to like?
I mean, it's a fun story, especially because this is kind of bringing generations together, right? Because for that movie and everybody that grew up with that movie to now, so it's kind of fun. It'll be interesting to see if
that movie was out before their players were born, dude.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if there's a little uptick in people watching that movie now that are become familiar with it.
I'll tell you what, there might be an uptick in me watching St. Louis Blues games. I'm all in with these motherfuckers. The Blackhawks are out, so, I need a team to cheer for. I might as well go with the Blues, although I'm going to have to get a Blues sweater if I'm going to do that, Ron. As you know, I'm rapidly putting together
a hockey sweater guy. You're a hockey sweater
collection here. I am. Figurines and hockey sweaters is how I do it. Ron, I wasn't listening to When Doves Cry back in the 80s. Ron, I was undateable, as you may recall. But guess what, Ron? The fun is just beginning here today on the Ricky Cobb Show because it's time for America's Poll of the Day. And let's go to it now. It's Super 70 Sports on X, where the eagle flies high and then buzzes your dome with a little bit of freedom and some good shit. And today we have a poll that I have constructed for your hopeful entertainment, and more importantly than that, for you to think a little bit. Get the brain cells warming up here in the morning hours as we close in on noon. The options today that the Eagle has brought for us: a good first date. Ron, just that feeling of having that first date with somebody, and you know that little pep. Yeah, we all know that little feeling when you're going home afterwards thinking, I don't know, might be something happening here. We'll see. Second, we have AC/DC, the Australian Rockers, walk-off home runs, and the smell of a rainy day. And I think that we all understand what that means. I kind of went out there on that one, but I believe everybody can imagine the rainy day smell in their minds. If you possess an olfactory sense, Ronnie, break it down for me as only you can.
For me, there's only one answer here that anybody should pick. So it's going to be interesting to see how the results are. But I mean, a good first date.
I hope you're talking about AC/DC. I know you're not, but it would be so fucking amazing to me if you were. Dirty deeds, done dirt cheap. Yeah,
dirty
just you
deeds,
cruising down the highway, windows down, ashing your cigarette out the window as you're.
Listen, I know. I think it was Rex Crum. He already commented that he's imagining me saying I don't like AC/DC. They're actually one of the 70s rock bands that I actually do like because something about them, there's a good beat. I like music with beats, and it's definitely they have it. But
you like music with a beat, Ron. It's good to know.
No, there's some rock. I like
the one
music.
Who likes music that has a beat.
No, there's music out there. I like music that I immediately want to start bopping my head to. There's a lot of rock music that does not elicit head bopping. So that's what I'm talking about. A good first date, dude, like that should win because it's the first step of all of our ultimate journeys, right? Like we're all looking to pair up, find a life partner, start a family, and a good first date just gives you, like you said, that pep in your step, and you're just hopeful, like, oh my gosh, have I actually found the person that I'm gonna like move forward with? So for me, a good first date is the clear and obvious winner here. I'm sure it's not going to, but that's how I feel. Walk-off homers, love walk-off homers because that means baseball game is over. And a smell of a rainy day.
Was that just the worst shade that I've ever heard you throw at baseball? Thank God, can we go home? It's like when I took my my 14-year-old back when she was about 5 or 6. I took her to her first baseball game, and it was like the 8th inning, and she started reaching under the seat and grabbing everything that we had accumulated, and she said, all right, now I guess we should be going home. You know, she had had enough. 7.5 innings, and it was like, I remember she said, let's gather our things and go home. And that's how you feel when you go to a baseball game. Yeah. When do we get to gather our things and go home? Cosign from Ronnie t-shirts.
Smell of a rainy day. I get it. I mean, I'd probably vote fourth for that, but there is something. I mean, our smell is one of our most intense senses, because it brings back memories. So I get why some people would vote for that, because there's something nice about that. But a good first date is, again, it's the cornerstone of everything of our adult life. So,
all right, Ron. All right, so I'm going to quickly give you my thoughts here. A good first date is, it's the hope of a brighter tomorrow, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's what you're saying. There's a hope, there's something pure about that, just sort of that feeling of like, hey, maybe I'm catching on to something good in my life here. So I do think that's a good feeling. AC/DC, I enjoy AC/DC. Two great lead singers. I had a poll one time, Bon Scott or Brian Johnson, and I think it may have finished 50-50, or it was like 52-48. They're one of those rare bands that have had two frontmen that are more or less equally good. They've had a long career. Walk-off homers are fun. I like them for, the right reasons, Ron, because of the excitement and the thrill of it. And I've seen a few in my lifetime. In my life going to major league games, I've probably had the opportunity to see 5 or 6 walk-off home runs. And, it's a moment when that happens. I saw Sammy Sosa hit a walk-off years ago at Wrigley, and, people were high-fiving each other on the way out of the stadium. It was just a good moment. And then the smell of a rainy day is good stuff too. But I'm going to agree with you, Ron. I'm going to vote for a good first date. So, Jared, let's light the candle, baby. And you can tell me if you want what your vote is as well, young man. All right, we're going to find out. Jared agrees with us. But there's no room for love with the Super 70 Sports audience, because we're listening to Thunderstruck and watching home runs. It's going to be walk-off homers followed by AC/DC.
A good date and a smell of a rainy day are almost tied. This might be the most disappointed I've ever been in your audience, Ricky. Holy crap. I'll
Jared
tell you what.
Says that you said that last week as well.
I did about autumn. I said it. It was about autumn. How about a good first date in autumn? My God, is there anything better than that? But the one thing, at least
that's Neil Sedaka territory. I hear laughter in the rain, Ron. When you
I do
that.
Like the fact though,
walking hand in hand with the.
I like the fact that this show loves love. I like it. We love love.
We love love on this show. I mean, we're sensitive guys, Ron.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it. We really are. But I walk-off homers doubling up a good first date. I don't know if that's – maybe we've just got some people out there I don't know how to explain it, Ron. Maybe
I don't
they've just
either,
given
Ricky.
up on love. Maybe
I
they're
really
jaded.
don't. Or maybe maybe they've been married for so long that they don't remember a first date.
They've forgotten.
Yeah.
Forgotten what it feels like, which is sad.
Hey, OutKick fans on YouTube, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and make your way over to OutKick.com where you can watch the full episode.